I guess it's right for me to say congratulations at this point.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think we should congratulate the Bodo community first and foremost.
All right. Now, this case has been on for years now. Talk us through how it all started. I understand somewhere along the line, Shell did part with money and, gave contracts for the cleanup in that community. How did things go, sir?
Well, this case relates to two enormous oil spills in 2008, which devastated the Bodo Creek area, which is a large mangrove area near the Bonny terminal in the Niger Delta outside of Port Harcourt. And essentially, there are 30,000 people who live in this community. Their way of life is devastated for generations to come. We have agreed a compensation package which has gone to each of the individual families, but Shell still hasn't cleaned up. And these spills are almost now a decade old. It's the largest loss of mangrove habitat in the history of oil spills, and getting Shell to clean up has proved extremely difficult. We have agreed to keep the litigation on hold because Shell have promised they will clean up. And in essence, what happened was there's been various problems in the community, there's been unrest, some people have caused difficulties, and on the basis of that, Shell has tried to get rid of the entire cleanup case on behalf of 30,000 people who want to have the place cleaned up. We've managed to stop them from doing that. We said, no, this is your oil, all we want you to do is clean it up. Please get on with the job and do it to international standards. And the judge has agreed that the community should have the right to come back if Shell doesn't do the job.
So was Shell trying to stop the community from, going to court in the first place? What limitation was Shell trying to place on the community?
They were basically saying, look, our obligation, as far as we're concerned, is we just got to fund the cleanup. And provided we fund the cleanup, that's the end of our obligations. The community said, no, your obligation legally is to clean up all the oil to international standards. Just funding the cleanup isn't enough. If you fund the cleanup and the contractors do a terrible job, we need to be able to come back to court. And that was ultimately a point the judge agreed with.
So who's supposed to bring the contractors? Was it Shell's responsibility, or was Shell paying the community to find a contractor?
No, Shell isn't paying the community anything. This is all going through Shell and through a process called the Bodo Mediation Initiative, which is the only international cleanup process which is going on at this day in the entire Niger Delta. And we say that's no coincidence. We say that's because pressure is being brought on Shell through the London courts to make sure they clean up. And
now,
Now,
Daniel, I understand that in 2015, Shell agreed to pay £55 million to that community. Did Shell go ahead to pay this money? And now we have this ruling in court. What's next?
So yes, Shell did pay that money. That money was wired then directly to, it was split up into 15,000 families, and that was money that went directly to each and every one of those families. Yeah. And they have used that money to get back on their feet, to start small businesses, to rebuild their lives. So that has been a success. I should say that Shell initially offered $4,000 to settle this claim. They ultimately ended up paying
$4,000.
Initially, they offered $4,000, and now the position is, we as environmental lawyers and human rights lawyers, we're not going to walk away from this case unless and until we are confident that Shell is going to clean up the Bodo Creek, because it's one thing for compensation to be paid for loss of livelihoods, but we are talking about the loss of this environment for future generations, and it has to be cleaned up.
Daniel, in all honesty, do you really think Shell will clean this up? I mean, the Niger Delta is known to have suffered oil spills for decades, with most of the oil companies not taking responsibility for it. It's been 10 years now since the oil spill. The case is still in court. Do you think Shell will come through at the end of the day?
Well, the evidence is that they're going further and farther than they have ever been before, that there are all kinds of top international people involved in this cleanup, and it is happening. So I think we are getting there, but the only way we're getting there is by continually putting pressure on them to make sure they stay on track. That's why this court case is so important, and if this works, it is a precedent. Which is going to show oil majors that they can actually clean up in the Niger Delta if they put their minds to it and they put a lot of effort into it. And other communities could benefit from this precedent. So that is why so much is at stake with this case. If this works, then there's no reason why similar cleanup can't be rolled out to other communities in the Niger Delta.